Welcome back to Rocky Mountain Prepper. I'm Bellum. We are back in our Strong Foundation series. Before we get into Exodus, I feel convicted by the Spirit to read a few things to you from the New Testament. I feel convicted because God probably wants someone to hear this. There's just a few passages. Some of you may be worrying or stressed about stuff, and I know I have been in the past. The first one is Philippians 4, verse 12. Let's actually go up to 11 instead. Now that I speak concerning need, for I have learned to be content in whatever state I am in. I know what it is to be humble, and I know what it is to have excess. In any and every situation I have learned both to be filled and to be hungry, both to have in excess and to be in need. I have strength to do all through Messiah who empowers me. That's just him saying what he has been through. This next one's from the book of Ecclesiastes. This is in the Old Testament. It's Ecclesiastes 3, all the way through 8. For every matter there is an appointed time, even a time for every pursuit under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to speak and a time to loose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for battle and a time for peace. In that passage, God is more telling us to be patient. There will be times for everything. You may not agree with his timing, but his timing, his ways are not our ways. His time is not our time. The next passage is Matthew 7:25. Because of this I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat or drink, or about your body, or what you shall put on. Is not life more than food, and body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the heaven, for they neither sow nor reap, nor gather into storehouses, yet your heavenly Father does feed them. Are you not worth more than they? And which of you, by worrying, is able to add 1 cubit to his lifespan? So why do you worry about clothing? Note well the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And I say to you that even Solomon, in his esteem, was not dressed like one of these. But if Elohim so clothes the grass of the field, which exists today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, how much more you, O you of little belief? That was Jesus, Yeshua, our Messiah, speaking. Don't worry. God has a plan for us, and He will see us through it. In my experience, He will drag us along kicking and screaming. He knows what we need, and He is providing that. In fact, Christ even tells us when He's teaching us to pray in our Lord's Prayer, it says, give us this day our daily bread. We're asking God to help us to sustain our lives. Everything that we need is included in the daily bread. Now, the last thing before we get to the our walk through the Bible back in Exodus is Philippians 4:7. And it reads, and the peace of Elohim, which surpasses all understanding, shall guard your hearts and minds through Messiah. It's a prayer for all of you. The peace of the Lord be with you. All right. Now, as usual, I'm going to ask you to please get out your own Bibles, read along. Don't trust me to read this. Read it for yourself as well. I will be reading, but you read along. Humans are fallible. I've never known a human who hasn't failed in something. The only person that has ever walked this planet who has never failed us is Yeshua, Jesus, the Son of the living God. Read along, please. It will give you comfort, peace, and hope. Read through your Bibles without ceasing. When last we were reading, Moses was born. Before that, we learned the Pharaoh was really worried about the sheer numbers of the people of Israel. At this point, there's over 500,000 military-aged males. That's enough to make any ruler worried. They'd already been put into bondage, set to hard labor, with slave masters over them. They built the cities of Pishon and Ramesses. I do say it that way because Ra was their sun god, and Moses actually means drawn out. In Pharaoh's court, Moses would have been called probably Hepi Moses, as in meaning their god of the Nile, Hepi, drew him out of the water. Or it could have been Pharaoh Ramesses, or Pharaoh Moses. Something to indicate that he was drawn out of the water. Either they gave credit to the god of the Nile, or they gave credit to Pharaoh or his daughter. We don't know, because he left Egypt. He ran to Midian. He didn't know he was going to Midian. He ran from Egypt after he killed an Egyptian, and Pharaoh started searching for him. He went to Egypt, or from Egypt, and ended up in the land of Midian, where he rescued Jethro's daughters from some shepherds who were very bad to them and wouldn't let them water the sheep. He watered their sheep. They just went back as soon as he started watering the sheep. Jethro said, told him, "What are you doing? Why didn't you bring this man in? Come, bring him here. I want to at least thank him." And he ended up marrying one of Jethro's daughters. And then he's helping his father-in-law. And it says that and Elohim looked on the children while Moses is over in Midian. Moses actually having been from the line of Levi. It says that Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. Just before that, it mentions that God had remembered his covenant with them. There was a specific amount of time that he told the patriarchs they would be down in Egypt. And God basically said, "Okay, that's about enough time. It's time to go down. It's time to look to see how they're doing." And God was not happy. All right. Let's continue with our little Bible study here. Okay. Exodus 3. And Moses was shepherding the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. And the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire in the midst of a bush. And he looked and saw the bush burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Any of us looking to see a bush just sitting there burning away and it not catching fire? It looks like it's on fire, but the bush isn't even charring. It's not beginning to be consumed. This is not normal. I would have gone and investigated. Some people I know would have ran. I know I would have gone to see. And Moses, or in Hebrew, Moshe, said, "Let me turn aside now and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn." And Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, and Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not come near here. Take off your sandals off your feet, For the place on which you are standing is set apart ground. Set apart is a straight translation from Hebrew to English. In Latin and Greek, it would be translated as holy. If you are a set apart people, you are a holy people. If something is made holy, it is made to set apart from everything else. The land he was standing on was holy ground. And in that time period, because no one really paid attention to what they were stepping in, it is not a good thing to be walking into holy ground with your sandals on. It is more traditional to remove your shoes to go into holy ground. Nowadays, not as much. We actually pay attention to what we step in. We try to avoid piles of animal dung. So it made sense back then. Take off your shoes, man. This is holy ground. And he said, I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And he said, I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Mitzrayim. That would be Egypt. And I have heard their cry because of their slave drivers, for I know their sorrows. See, that's even saying right in here. You're having problems, God knows it. He even told Moses, I know the people's sorrows. I know what they're going through. Why would he not know that now? The Almighty Father is all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's seeing. He might be asking you for something as simple as asking him. Now, I was raised Lutheran, and I still consider myself Lutheran. And in the Lutheran branch of Christianity, we actually teach that we are to ask God, ask the Father, like dear children ask their dear fathers. Ask God like your kids ask you. That's all he wants. Come to him like a child. Jesus even says it, suffer the children unto me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. He's talking more about the faith, but he's also talking about how we approach God. Children are afraid of upsetting their fathers. Sometimes their mothers too. Usually the moms are the fun ones. But if you're consistent with your discipline, then they'll know the line when to cross it. I learned that from here. My dad died when I was little. I was about 2 years old. I learned how to be a father by reading this book. You need to be consistent. Set strict rules. Do not let them cross it. Warn them when they're getting close. Yes. Be their buddy, of course. But once they cross that line that you have set, that line in the sand, you are to punish. The Bible later on says, spare the rod and you spoil the child. This is not spoiling like we think of it today, where you're spoiling your children by giving them too much sweets. No. It's more spoiling as in like meat going bad. Milk spoiling. It's ruined. In that passage, I'll read it for you later in some other day. But he's saying, if you don't discipline your child, you will ruin your child. Yeah, so we just read that he hid his face. Wouldn't you? If you thought you saw God because the bush was burning and wasn't consumed, and then you hear a voice coming out of that, not in your head, it's not in your head, you hear it with your ears. I know I would drop onto the ground and bury my face in the sand in front of me, or the dirt, whatever. I would be terrified. Because when the glory of the Lord comes to earth, people die. Why do you think in the Christmas account, when the angel appeared to give the good news, the angel appeared before that to the shepherds, and they were sore afraid? Why? Because he had the glory of the Lord around him. And they know from reading this book that most of the time an angel is sent to destroy, to kill. That's why I tell people, if I hear a voice telling me to go kill, I'm not going to assume it's God. I'm going to first talk to my pastor, and I am going to go talk to psychiatrists, because that means I am losing it. Either a demon is trying to get me to commit a murder, or I am going insane. Either way is not good. I would first go to my pastor, and then I would go to psychiatric professionals in the same day. Because God has more tools than I do. He does not need me to go do that work. In fact, it says throughout the Bible, it is my job to protect my neighbors. Do whatever it takes to protect the lives of everyone around. That is what I do. I won't fight unless I have to. I won't kill unless it's absolutely necessary. I was in war. I've fought. I know what it's like to take a life. I don't like it. But that's not on me. Soldiers are exempt from that as long as they are just following their orders. If I have orders to defend an area, fine. If I have orders to defend my men, fine. If I do not have orders to go into an area and wipe out, say, women and children, then I'm not going to. If I'm, as a soldier, if I'm told to go kill a village, kill everyone in the village, I am going to refuse. That's not only against God's law, it's against the Geneva Convention. And it even goes back farther. Soldiers do not attack women and children. I would not do that unless I had zero choices. This book tells me why. It tells me when and how to fight. I have not come across any of those yet. Since I've gotten out, I'm not going to take up arms unless I have to. Okay, let's continue on. For I know their sorrows, and I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Mitzrayites, and to bring them from the land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now see, the city of the children of Israel has come, and now see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Mitzrayites oppress them. And now, come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim. And Moses said to Elohim, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim? And he said, Because I am with you, and this is to you the sign that I have seen you. When you have brought the people out of Mitzrayim, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain. And Moses said to Elohim, See, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? Now, that is an interesting thing. I doubt that people would have actually said that. This is more him being brought up as an Egyptian. After he was weaned, he was raised in Pharaoh's court. He would have known all the gods of Egypt. And he would have been pretty pagan at that point, but God chose him and God brought him into the faith. And so he's asking him, who am I to say you are? Because they're going to ask, who has sent them? What is your name? What am I to say to them? I'm pretty sure God was smiling at this. Just the sheer laughability of that comment. I mean, come on, man. Why not? If you want to know my name, just ask me directly. Kind of a situation. But God plays along. And Elohim said to Moses, I am that which I am. And he said, Thus you say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And Elohim said further to Moses, Thus you are to say to the children of Israel, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance to all generations. Still got generations coming? Yep. I have worked in hospitals. I know there are still generations being born. This still holds true. I even have another generation off of me. So, here, he is saying, this is my name for all generations to honor me. He goes on, Go, and you shall gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you, and see what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I say, I am bringing you up from the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of Canaan, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Pezerites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Back in those times, most people didn't have time for beekeeping. Most people didn't have excess enough of milk to do anything but make some cheese. or butter. If you have an excess enough that you can sit there and drink milk, that means you've got a lot of cows, because you have to put some away. You have to preserve it for the lean times, for the times when they are not going to produce. Okay? Make some cheese. Cheese lasts a very long time. Even moldy cheese is good for you, to some extent. It's just simply blue cheese. When it's moldy, it's blue cheese. Okay, fine. It gets really hard for a while, and then it gets soft again with the mold going through it. Okay. That's preserved milk. Honey, unless you were lucky enough to find a wild beehive, you might not have honey around. Honey is sweet. It's the candy of ancient times. Some scholars even go as far as saying that the honey that they were referring to, or the milk and honey that they were referring to, would be dates. The Judean date, it's coming back. They found some seeds, a whole bunch of seeds, up in Herod's palace on what was that place called again? Up in the in the Judean desert. Can't remember the name of the fortress, but it was one of the last fortresses to be destroyed by the Romans after they were putting down the rebellion of the Jews. Masada, that's it. Well, they found a jar full of seeds. Perfectly preserved. They hadn't had any water. They've got them to sprout. So far, they've gotten 6 or 7 to sprout. One of them, the first one to sprout, they call the Methuselah tree. It's planted. It's growing. It's a male, meaning it only produces pollen. They're hopeful that some of the others, at least one of the others, is a female, so they can actually bring back the extinct Judean date palm. It used to be growing wild throughout there. But some of the scholars think that was the milk and honey they were talking about, because a date palm will produce a ton of, once it's fertilized, it'll produce a ton of dates. And dates last a very long time. I personally believe that falls under the category of the honey. Sweets. Candy. Nowadays, God would be saying, hey, it's a land flowing with candy and goodness for you. Back then, it was simpler. Land flowing with milk and honey. That's saying that this land that I'm going to give you is flowing with an overabundance of everything. Yeah. That's what God wants to give us, an overabundance. When He blesses richly. It's not always the blessing's not always what we think, though. We're all blessed through Christ. He has blessed us by dying for us. We're more blessed than anyone could even dream of back then. Our sins are gone. All we have to do is ask. All right. Back to the Bible passages. And they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come. You and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim, that would be to the Pharaoh, and you shall say to him, Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now, please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter to Yahweh, our Elohim. But I know that the sovereign of Mitzrayim is not going to let you go. Not even by a strong hand. And I shall stretch out my hand and strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I shall do in its midst. And after that he shall let you go. And I shall give his people favor in the eyes of, and I shall give this people favor in the eyes of the Mizraites. And it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask for from her neighbor, and from her who sojourns in her house, objects of silver and objects of gold and garments, and you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and shall plunder the Mizraites. These are quite a few years worth of wages that God's referring to. He's not saying that you're going to actually plunder them. It's going to look like plundering, but they owe you for all the years of servitude. And he will make them favorable to it. Pharaoh is going to be setting himself up to lose all of Egypt. Because Pharaoh has to have God show all his might. Not even all of his might. Show these wonders. God is going to destroy their economy. He's going to wipe out their crops, killing people. Their population's decimated. The people are going to be hungry, starving. What soldiers that Pharaoh had left, he's going to send off after the people of Israel, and they're going to be destroyed. The true punishment of Egypt is not the plagues. Or the true punishment of Pharaoh, I should say, is not the plagues, not Egypt being so hard up afterwards. Pharaoh wouldn't have even really cared if the people were starving or dead. The true punishment of Egypt comes a few years later, after the people of Israel are gone. The Hyksos came in, killed Dudamas and his family, took over Egypt. Yes. Pharaoh Dudamas lost Egypt to the Hyksos. And that's his punishment. But first God has to do wonders to destroy Egypt. I personally believe that when all the plagues, they're after effects. Because God attacked the various gods of Egypt. These are little g gods. In my opinion, they're demons portraying themselves as gods. God shows he has power over that. Oh, oops, I killed that demon. Ha ha. Honestly, if God wanted to, he could have just snapped his fingers and they would have been free and away. But he wanted to show his power. So that generations later, thousands of years later, we can point to this record right here in this book and say, see what God did to save them? Go ahead. Put us in prison. Put us in slavery. You'll be worse off for it later. Gives us hope that God is a warrior who fights for us. Gives us hope that God is in our corner. All we have to do is believe and read his word and do our best to follow his commands. When we fall short, which we will, trust me, I do it all the time, but I am constantly on my knees praying to the Father through his Son for forgiveness. I am a broken vessel. In fact, if I was actually as broken a vessel as I know my mind is, and my body. If I was a clay pot that archaeologists were pulling up, they would be pulling up little itty bitty shards, wondering what is this? What was this to? We have to put this together to figure it out. But God can work through me. And if He can work through me, He can work through you. I am a shattered, broken person, and He works through me. I look at this channel as an opportunity to teach as a missionary. People all across the world can look at my work, at this video, and learn about God, what He has done for us. And I hope they do. But we need to continue on. And Moses answered and said, "And if they do not believe me, nor listen to my voice, and say, Yahweh has not appeared to you?" And Yahweh said to him, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "A rod." Basically, it's a walking stick, a staff. Some translations actually say staff. And he said, "Throw it on the ground." So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses fled from it. I would too. I was military. But if I tossed my staff, my walking stick on the ground, and it turned to a serpent, I would definitely jump back or run screaming, because that doesn't happen normally. That is a danger. All of a sudden, the power of God is starting to manifest. Of course, I'm not going to stick around. I'm not stupid. The power of God is too much for any mortal to handle. But I admit that. And Yahweh said to Moses, "Reach out your hand and seize it by the tail." So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand. So that they believed that Yahweh, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahweh said to him again, "Now put your hand in your bosom." Put it in your robe. So he put his hand in his bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom, and he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous, like snow. And he said, "Put your hand in your bosom again." So he put his hand in his bosom again, and drew it out of his bosom, and see, it was restored, like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to your voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on dry land, and the water which you take from the river shall become blood on the dry land. And Moses said to Yahweh, "O Yahweh, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since. You have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." Some people interpret that as he stuttered. He's not a good public speaker. I understand that. I used to be terrified to speak to this camera, knowing that it would go out to the world. But he has helped. Before every program, before every video I do, I say a prayer asking for help. Give the right words so I can teach you. ever since I started, I've been getting better at it. I know that there is possibly millions of people watching, hopefully, eventually. It doesn't affect me anymore. It is actually a good thing. Because it shows me that he is helping me to learn this stuff. Alright, let's continue on. Slow of speech and slow of tongue. There we go. And Yahweh said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who makes dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? And now go, and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. But he said, oh Yahweh, please send by the hand of him whom you would send. And the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Moses. And he said, is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he speaks well. And see, he is also coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart. Moses didn't like it. Moses was afraid to talk. I get it. But God was pissed about it because he didn't have faith. And so God gave him provisions. He said, okay, fine. You don't want to speak yourself? Fine. You'll talk to Aaron. Aaron will do this talking. Goes on. And you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I am with your mouth and with his mouth. And I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people. And it shall be that he shall be the mouth for you. And you shall be an Elohim for him. Basically saying you will be my right-hand man. He will talk your talk. He'll say exactly what you want him to say. You will be like me to him. He will be your mouthpiece, like you are my mouthpiece. God knows that eventually Moses will come around and be able to talk to the people. He's giving him, because this is very time sensitive, he's giving him help right now because it has to be done. And take this rod in your hand, which with you shall do the signs. Then Moses went and returned to Joshua, his father-in-law. I wonder why that says Joshua there. Anyway, to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, please let me go and return to my brothers who are in Mitzrayim, and see whether they are still alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. And Moses said, and Yahweh said to Moses in Mitzrayim, go and return, or in Midian, go return to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who sought your life. Basically, God is reassuring him, look, the Pharaoh's dead. Don't worry about it. That would have been Dunamas' father. Hold on, I have that in here. Tutmosis the First. God is saying, Pharaoh Tutmosis the First is dead. You'll be fine. Uh, Go in peace. Start your life. So Moses took his wife and his sons and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moses took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moses, as you go back to Mitzrayim, see that you do all these wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart so that he does not let the people go. God wants to do all the work. God wants to do all of this stuff to fight Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt. He is hungering for the fight. He is a warrior. And you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me. But if he refuses to let him go, see, I am killing your sons, your firstborn. Basically, Moses is getting a heads up on everything that's coming. And it came to be on the way, in the lodging place, that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. Moses wasn't fully prepared. Before you go do God's work, you must make sure your own house is in order. Pure and simple. It goes on. And Zepha took a sharp stone and cut the foreskin of her son and threw it at his feet and said, you are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me. Moses didn't follow the command. So let him go. Then she said, you are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision. And Yahweh said to Aaron, go to meet Moses in the wilderness. And when he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. That's more of a friendly family kiss. It was traditional back then. I know nowadays we get all wigged out about it because of the whole homosexual connotation behind it, but it's not gay. Not in this case. It would be more gay in the old sense of the word. Happy. He embraced him. He is grateful that he is around. Moses then told Aaron all the words of Yahweh, who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses went with Aaron and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moses. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people. And the people believed. And they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, and they bowed their heads and did obedience. Exodus 5. And afterwards, Moses and Aaron went in and said to Pharaoh, thus said Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, let my people go, so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. This is more of a trick. If Pharaoh were to let them go, they wouldn't have come back. they would have gone into the wilderness and disappeared from Pharaoh. They would have taken long ways around and ended up in Israel. God told him to do this, to say this, so that if Pharaoh was going to be obedient, which God already knew he wasn't going to be, but to give hope to Moses that there's a chance that Pharaoh will do the right thing and let him go. And then they'll just sneak off. Yeah, they'll be hunted slaves, but that you can deal with. A lot easier. And Pharaoh said, "Who is Yahweh that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? And I do not know Yahweh, nor am I going to let Israel go." And they said, "The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please, let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword." But the sovereign of Mitzrayim said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people up from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "See, the people of the land are many now, and you make them cease from their burdens." And the same day Pharaoh commanded the slave drivers of the people and their foremen, saying, "You are no longer to give straw to make bricks as before. Let them go gather straw for themselves." When you're making mud bricks, you have to mix straw or grass in with it to actually strengthen it. It gives it strength. It's like putting aggregate in concrete. You have to mix in the little bits of straw into the mud. And it's a high clay content, so it's actually rather strong brick. They do the same thing still with adobe. They'll put straw, grass, sometimes animal poop, into the mud as they're mixing it with their feet. Yeah, they did mix it with their feet. Just like in the Charlton Heston movie. It got mixed with their feet. Because that was the easiest way to mix it. It's not like they would use a ground cloth to fold it over and over and over and over. That doesn't work as well. Honestly, it's easier to dig a little shallow pit, toss in your clay, toss it and water, start mud stomping it, and then have someone tossing some, scattering the straw in until it's got the right consistency. Then you scoop it out, put it into molds. Let it sit for a couple minutes to set, pull off the mold, move over, do it again. That is what they were doing. Straw for themselves. And lay on them the required amount of bricks which they made before. Do not diminish it, for they are idle. That is why they cry out, saying, "Let us go and slaughter to our Elohim." He's saying, oh, they must have too much time on their hands. So if they must be praying and crying to me to take their people, let their people go to slaughter to God, they must have way too much time on their hands. They can gather straw at night. Or whenever. They have to find time now. Let more work be laid on them, on the men, so that they labor in it, and not pay attention to the words of falsehood. And the slave drivers of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, "Thus said Pharaoh, I do not give you straw. Go, take straw for yourselves wherever you find it, for your work shall not be diminished. And the people were scattered in all the land of Mitzrayim to gather stubble for straw. And the slave drivers were hurrying them on, saying, fulfill your actions, your daily matters, as they were, or as when there was straw. I apologize. And also the foremen of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over them, were struck, and were asked, why have you not fulfilled your law in making bricks, both yesterday and today, as before? And the foreman of the children of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, saying, why do you treat your servants this way? There is no straw given to your servants, and they say to us, make bricks. And see, your servants are struck, but your own people are at fault. But he said, you are idle. You are idle. That is why you say, let us go and slaughter to Yahweh. So, now go, work. And straw is not given to you, but deliver the amount of bricks. And the foreman of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it, and said, you are not to diminish your daily amount of bricks. And when they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moses and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, let Yahweh look on you and judge you, because you have made us loathsome in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to give a sword in their hands to kill us. And Moses returned to Yahweh and said, Yahweh, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you send me? For ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to his people. To this people. And you have not delivered your people at all. And Yahweh said to Moses, now see what I do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand I am going to let them go. And with a strong hand he is going to drive them out of his land. That's God prophesying right there about the way that they leave. Pharaoh follows them with his army. Yes, it mentions chariots later when they're leaving. But it's more than just chariots. The Egyptians didn't just send chariots ever. Ever. The chariots were the vanguard. The front line. Chariots went in. They had archers on there, and they had spearmen. The archers were also spearmen. So that they would be pummeling the enemy. And behind the chariots would be coming the heavy infantry. Heavy shields, spears, the sickle sword. Then behind them would be the light infantry to protect the archers behind them. And when the Pharaoh would send his army in to charge, like say through the Red Sea, the chariots started to get close, and God took the wheels off. All of the rest of the army caught up. Yeah, they might have gotten some chariot wheels back on. Then the waters came. People can't outrun the falling water. You might have been able to get out if your chariot wasn't blocked by infantry and archers. God is prophesying that he's going to destroy their army too. Just saying right there. That he's going to drive them out of his land. Well, that's kind of the one spin on it. They left rejoicing, and Pharaoh got pissed. That's another way. Anyway, and Elohim spoke to Moses and said to him, I am Yahweh. And I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, and by my name Yahweh. Was I not known to them? And I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojournings in which they have sojourned. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Mitzrayites are enslaving, and I have returned. All right, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the children of Israel, I am Yahweh, and I shall bring you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrayites, and shall deliver you their enslaving, and shall deliver you from their enslaving, and shall redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments, and shall take you as my people, and I shall be your Elohim, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim, who is bringing you out from under the burdens of the Mitzrayites. And I shall bring you into the land which I swore to give Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yahweh. And Moses spoke thus to the children of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses because of shortness of spirit and from hard slavery. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Go in and speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to let the children of Israel go out of this land. And Moses spoke before Yahweh, saying, The children of Israel have not listened to me. And why would Pharaoh listen to me? For I am of uncircumcised lips. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, and gave them a command for the children of Israel and for Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim. These are the heads of their fathers' houses, the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, Hanok and Palu, Hadzaron and Chemri. These are the clans of Reuben. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel and and Jamin and Korad and Jachan and Tazar and Shaul, the sons of the Canaanite woman. These are the clans of Simeon. These are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations. Gershon and Korath and Mara. And the years of the life of Levi were 137. That's interesting that they just toss that in there all of a sudden. The sons of Gershon, Libyan, and Shimei, according to their clans. The sons of Korath, Amram, and Jastar, and Hebron, and Uzel. And the years of the life of Korath were 133. The sons of Merali, and Mushi, clans of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took for himself Jochebed, his father's sister, as wife, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. And the years of life of Amram were 137. This is basically giving an account showing the lineages, at least the lineage of some of the tribe of Levi, is what I can tell. And you can add up the ages, but that's not going to really mean much because it's not saying he was this age when so-and-so was born. So this is just giving a little information on Moses and Aaron's genealogy to show they are of the tribe of Levi. To prove, basically they were probably having to tell this to the people to say, look, we're of the tribe of Levi. We're supposed to be doing this stuff with God. Okay, and the sons of Joktar, Jokstar, Koran, and Neged, and Zerah, and the sons of Uzel, Mishael, and Elisthan, and Sithri. Aaron took himself Elizabeth, daughter of Amirabab, sister of Nahshon, his wife, and she bore him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithmar, the sons of Korah, Asher, Korath, and Asbileth. I believe that's how that is pronounced. Please tell me otherwise if you know. These are the clans of the Korites, and Eleazar, Aaron's son, took for himself one of the daughters of Putzel as wife, and she bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers of the Levites, according to their clans. This is Aaron and Moses, to whom Yahweh said, Bring out the children of Israel from the land. Bring out the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim, according to their divisions. They are the ones whom spoke to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, to bring out the children of Israel from the Mitzrayim. This is Moses and Aaron. And it came to be on the day when Yahweh spoke to Moses in the land of Mitzrayim, that Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, I am Yahweh, speak to Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, all that I say to you. And Moses said before Yahweh, See, I am of uncircumcised lips. Why would Pharaoh listen to me? I apologize for how long this is going. I love this book of the Bible. I am going to go at least one more chapter, just because I love it. I may go a little farther, but I'm going to continue on. Exodus 7. So Yahweh said to Moses, "See, I have made you an Elohim to Pharaoh, and Aaron, your brother, is your prophet." So basically he's saying, Pharaoh can't touch you. I am making you more powerful than the gods of Egypt. He will look at you as a god. You shall speak all that I command to you, and Aaron your brother shall speak to Pharaoh, to let the children of Israel go out of this land. But I am going to harden the heart of Pharaoh, and shall increase my signs and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh is not going to listen to you. And you shall lay my hand on Mitzrayim and bring my divisions and my people to the children of Israel out of the land of Mitzrayim by great judgments. And the Mitzrayites shall know that I am Yahweh when I stretch out my hand on Mitzrayim, and I shall bring the children of Israel out from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as Yahweh commanded them. So they did. Now Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. These are not young men, mind you. When Pharaoh, and Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, show me a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aaron, take your rod and throw it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. And so Moses and Aaron went in to Pharaoh, and they did as Yahweh commanded. And Aaron threw his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Let's pause right there. This is God destroying their god Thoth. Their god Thoth generally had a serpent. Looked like a serpent. At least his head did. And this god was the god of wisdom, magic, writing, and the moon. So, God is systematically destroying everything they have. Now, watch how he does it. But Pharaoh called the wise men and the practitioners of witchcraft. See? The priests of Thoth. And they, the magicians of Mitzrayim, also did so with their magic. They were able to duplicate it. They're like, see? We got it. And they, each one, threw down his rod, and they became serpents. But the rod of Aaron swallowed up their rods. God swallowed up the others. He destroyed that little g god. The demon portraying himself as a god was killed. Praise God. Praise Yahweh for that. And Pharaoh's heart was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Yahweh said to Moses, the heart of Pharaoh is hard. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh this morning as he goes out to the water, And you shall stand by the river bank to meet him, and take in your hand the rod which was turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, has sent me to you, saying, Let my people go, so they may serve me in the wilderness. But see, until now you have not listened. Thus say Yahweh. By this you know that I am Yahweh. See, I am striking the waters, which are the river, with the rod that is in my hand, and they shall be turned to blood. And all the fish in the river shall die, and the river shall stink. And the Mitzrayites shall find it impossible to drink the water of the river. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying to Aaron, Take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, and over their streams, and over their rivers, over their ponds, over their pools of water. And they became blood. And there shall be blood in the land of Mitzrayim, both in wooden and in stone containers. And Moses and Aaron did so, and as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river, in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of his servants, and all the waters in the river were turned to blood. Now, this plague is the first real destruction. I mean, Thoth was a minor participant here before. Now, that was him killing Hepi, the Egyptian god of the Nile. Yeah, he killed the god of the Nile. He needed to. It was a demon. He was taking them away from. He was taking people away from Yahweh. That is why he did it. Yes, he needed to do it to harden Pharaoh, to get Pharaoh to let him go, but he could have gotten Pharaoh to let him go when Moses first appeared to him and said, "Hey, let my people go." He could have been like, "Oh, okay, sure." Didn't happen. And the fish that were in the river died, and the river stank. And the Mitzrayites were unable to drink the water of the river, and the blood was in all the land of Mitzrayim. And the magicians of the Mitzrayim did the same with their magic. And the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and his heart was not moved by this either. And the Mitzrayites dug all around the river for water to drink, for they were unable to drink the water of the river. And 7 days were completed after Yahweh had struck the river. Alright, we need to stop here because this is getting rather long, and I would actually continue the entire book of Exodus in one shot. But I know none of you are going to be able to sit through all of that. So for now, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to read your own Bibles. And as usual, good luck, and God bless all of you.